scared.
Little pigs, let me come in. Not by the hair on your chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in. Here's Johnny.
The Stanley Hotel. Known for movies such as The Shining and Doctor Sleep, and also steeped in history of people claiming haunted occurrences while staying there. But what is the true history of the Stanley? Is it plagued with death? This is what the video is all about. The Stanley Hotel is a 142-room colonial revival hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, United States, about 5 miles from the entrance to the Rocky Mountain National Park. It was built by Freeland Oscar Stanley of the Stanley steamer fame and opened on July 4th, 1909 as a resort for upper-class Easterners and a health retreat for sufferers of pulmonary tuberculosis. The hotel and its surrounding structures are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Today, the hotel includes a restaurant, spa, and bed and breakfast, with panoramic views of Lake Estes, the Rockies, and Long's Peak. The Stanley Hotel inspired the Overlook Hotel in Stephen King's 1977 best novel, The Shining, and was a filming location for the related 1997 TV miniseries. History. In 1903, the Yankee steam-powered car inventor Freeland Oscar Stanley, 1849 to 1940, was stricken with a life-threatening resurgence of tuberculosis. The most highly recommended treatment of the day was fresh dry air with much sunlight and a hearty diet. Therefore, like many lungers of his day, Stanley resolved to take the curative air of the Rocky Mountains. He and his wife Flora arrived in Denver, Colorado in March, and in June, on the recommendation of Dr. Sherman Grant Bonney, moved to Estes Park, Colorado for the rest of the summer. Over the season, Stanley's health improved dramatically. Impressed by the beauty of the valley and grateful for his recovery, he decided to return every year. He lived to 91, dying of a heart attack in Newton, Massachusetts, 1 year after his wife in 1940. By 1907, Stanley had recovered completely. However, not content with his rustic accommodations, lazy pastimes, and relaxed social scene of their new summer home, Stanley resolved to turn Estes Park into a resort town in 1907. Construction began on the Hotel Stanley, a 48-room grand hotel that catered to the class of moderately wealthy urbanites who composed the Stanley social circle back east, as well as to the consumptive seeking the healthful climate. The land was purchased in 1908. though the representatives of the 4th Earl of Dunraven and Mount Earl, the Anglo-Irish peer who had originally acquired it by stretching the provisions of the Homestead Act of 1862 and preemption rights between 1872 and 1884, Lord Dunraven claimed 15,000 acres, 61 square kilometres, of the Estes Valley in an unsuccessful attempt to create a private hunting reserve, making him one of the largest foreign holders of American lands. Unpopular with the local ranchers and farmers, Dunraven left the area in 1884, relegating the ranch to the management of an overseer. Dunraven's presence in Colorado was parodied in Charles King's novel Dunraven Ranch, 1892, and James A. Michener's Continual in 1974. His reputation was such that when the Stanley suggested the Dunraven as the name for his new hotel, 180 people signed a buskin petition requesting that he name it for himself instead. The main hotel and concert hall were completed in 1909 and the manor in 1910 to bring guests from the nearest train depot in the foothills of town of Lyons, Colorado. Stanley's car company produced a fleet of specially designed steam-powered vehicles called mountain wagons that seated multiple passengers. Stanley operated the hotel almost as a pastime, remarking once that he spent more money than he made each summer. 1926, Stanley sold his hotel to a private company incorporated for the sole purpose of running it. The venture failed, and in 1929 Stanley purchased his property out of foreclosure, selling it again in 1930 to a fellow automobile and hotel magnate, Roe Emery of Denver. Until 1983, the resort was only open during the summer, shutting down for the winter every year. The presence of the hotel's own involvement greatly contributed to the growth of Estes Park Incorporated in 1917 and the creation of the Rocky Mountain National Park established in 1915. In 1911, a gas explosion occurred. Upon opening, the hotel was alleged to be one of the few in the world powered entirely by electricity. However, lack of available power induced the installation of an auxiliary gas lighting system in June 1911. On June 25th, the day after the pipes had been filled, an explosion occurred that injured a maid and damaged the structure. Though contemporary newspaper articles differ on certain details, a brief article telegraphed to the York Dispatch of York, Pennsylvania, and circulated by the Associated Press the following day said, "The Stanley Hotel, built at a cost of $500,000, was partly wrecked last night by an explosion of gas. 8 persons were injured, 1 seriously. None of the guests were injured. Elizabeth Wilson of Lancaster, PA, and hotel employee was hurled from the 2nd floor to the 1st floor, and both ankles were broken. The other 7 were Negro sick waiters." Excuse the term. When the Lancaster paper reprinted the story, the editor noted that Elizabeth Wilson's name did not appear in local directories, and she could not be identified as a Lancastrian. Similar accounts in local Colorado papers gave the maid's name as Elizabeth Lambert and convey various dramatic details that are not confirmed by other articles. The most comprehensive and detailed article on the incident appeared on June 29 in the Fort Collins Express and seems to be the most accurate, positively refuting the maid had been hurled from the 2nd floor to the 1st. that the explosion of gas in the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park Sunday night will not interfere with the reception and entertainment of guests. It was announced by the management Monday night. The dining room of the Stanley Manor will be used during the time the big building is undergoing repairs, and other accommodations will be adequate because of the fact that the damage was confined chiefly to the west end of the building. The management estimated that the damage last night at probably $10,000. It was announced that the work of the repairing the building will be taken up at once and pushed to the completion as rapidly as possible. The explosion was caused by an accumulation of acetylene gas from a leaky pipe. The gas accumulated in the space between the ceiling of the dining room and the fact of lighting the gas. When the match, which she held in her hand, ignited the Leighton-burger, had both ankles broken. It is thought from the caught by the timbers and held until rescued. She was in the employ of the hotel ever since it was built and came here from Philadelphia. 2 waiters also sustained slight injuries, one suffering from a dislocated hip and the other being struck across the face by a flying plank. Neither of these, however, is in serious condition. Alfred Lambourne, manager of the hotel, his wife and daughter and several guests were in the dining room at the time of the explosion, but all miraculously escaped injury. The dining room was badly wrecked, and the west end of the building was badly strained out of line from the force of the explosion. At least 10 large plate glass windows on the ground floor were shattered, as well as several doors which were blown from their hinges. The hotel is ordinarily lighted by electricity from a private plant in the neighbourhood, but the generator in this plant showed signs of early Sunday afternoon of giving trouble. Sunday night, so preparations were made to put auxiliary acetylene gas lighting system into working order. The generating plant for this system is located in Stanley Manor, and the big building had just been piped for acetylene last winter, the pipes never having been filled with gas until Sunday. Any hotels have got scandals. Any big hotels have got scandals, just like every big hotel has got a ghost. Why? Hell, people come and go. Sometimes one of them will pop off in his room, heart attack or stroke or something like that. Hotels are superstitious places. In 1974, during their brief residency in Boulder, Colorado, horror writer Stephen King and his wife Tabitha spent one night at the Stanley Hotel. The visit is known entirely through interviews given by King, in which he presents different narratives of the experience. At the time of the visit, King was writing a book with the working title Dark Shine Set in an amusement park, but was not satisfied with the setting. According to George Beams, Stephen King companion, on the advisement of locals who suggested a resort hotel located in Estes Park, an hour's drive away to the north, Stephen and Tabitha found themselves checking in at the Stanley Hotel, just as its other guests were checking out because the hotel was shutting down for the winter season. After checking in, and after Tabitha went to bed, King roamed the halls and went down to the hotel bar, where drinks were served by a bartender named Grady. As he returned to his room, numbered 217, his imagination was fired up by the hotel's remote location, its grand size and its eerie desolation, and when King went into the bathroom and pulled back the pink curtain for the tub, which he had claw feet, he thought, what if somebody died here? At that moment, I knew I had a book. In a 1977 interview by Literary Guild, King recounted, "While we were living in Boulder, we heard about this terrific old mountain resort hotel and decided to give it a try. But when we arrived, they were just getting ready to close for the season, and we found ourselves the only guests in the place. With all those long, empty corridors, King and his wife were served dinner in an empty dining room, accompanied by canned orchestral music. Except for our table, all the chairs were up on the tables, so the music is echoing down the hall, and I mean it was like God had put me there to hear that and see those things. And by the time I went to bed that night, I had the whole book, The Shining, in my mind." In another retelling, King said, "I dreamed of my 3-year-old son running through the corridors, looking back over his shoulder, eyes wide, screaming he was being chased by a fire hose. I woke up with a tremendous jerk, sweating all over. Within an inch of falling out of bed, I got up, lit a cigarette, and sat in a chair looking out of the window at the Rockies. And by that time, the cigarette was done. I had the bones of The Shining firmly set in my mind." The Shining was published in 1977 and became the third great success of King's career after Carrie and Salem's Lot. The primary setting is an isolated Colorado resort named the Overlook Hotel, which closes for the winter. In the front of the matter of the book, King tactically states some of the most beautiful resort hotels in the world are located in Colorado, but the hotel in these pages is based on none of them. The Overlook and the people associated with it exist wholly in the author's imagination. Haunted reputation. Despite a peaceful early history in the years following the publication of The Shining, the Stanley Hotel gained a reputation as a setting for paranormal activity. It has hosted numerous paranormal investigators and appeared in shows such as Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventurers. The hotel also offers guided tours, which feature spaces reputed to be exceptionally active. Famous guests. The Stanley Hotel has hosted the following persons of note. In 1934, Erich Fromm, the German psychoanalyst. In 1936, Governor Alf Landon, Arkansas, while running for president against Franklin Delano Roosevelt. In 1974, Stephen King, author who was inspired to write The Shining after his stay in room 217. In 1976, Bob Dylan and Joan Baez, folk revival icons during the Rolling Thunder Revue tour. In 1994, Emperor Akihito of Japan, Empress Michiko, and Crown Prince Naruhito on a state visit to the US. In 1994, Dumb and Dumber cast and crew, including Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels. In 1996, The Shining cast and the crew, including Rebecca De Mornay and Steven Weber. Ownership history. In 1908 to 1926, freelance Oscar Stanley. In 1926 to 1929, the Stanley Corporation. In 1929 to 1930, freelance Oscar Stanley. In 1930 to 1946, Roe Emery. In 1946 to 1966, Abel Management Company. Later Abel Hotel Company, run by Maxwell Abel, Chicago real estate investor. In 1969, Stanley Properties Inc., headed by Maurice L. Albertson, civil engineer at Colorado State University. In 1969, Richard R. Holchek, Charles F. Hansen, and Carol Hansen, pick of Riverside and Palm Springs, California. In 1974, Estes Park trustees. In 1974 to 1995, Frank Normali, complete restoration period. In 1995, present, Grand Heritage Hotel Group. So what do you think? Haunted or a figment of people's imagination? As you can see, the history of the Stanley has nothing to do with The Shining. There's no notorious stories of people dying there. Not any noted anyway. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. Have you stayed there? What do you think, it's haunted or not? Comments below, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and for those who've subscribed, I also thank you very much. Any support is much appreciated. I hope that I can continue to provide you with some useful entertainment and also some information you can learn from. Did you enjoy that? If you did, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and hit the notifications icon so you can see when I've done another video. And
I want you to tell all your friends about me.
until next time, I am Sir Shudder. See you soon. Be safe, be cool.